Let's talk about your triggers. Because if you're watching this video, I already know that you're on a journey of becoming a better version of yourself. This means that at some level, you're ready to be done with the past version of you. Well, the current version of you includes much of that past that you're still holding on to in your thought patterns, in your emotions, and behaviors. And this is where it lives, essentially. So if you want to accelerate the speed at which you shift your identity, then you have to be ready and willing to look into the darkness. It's the doorway to your transformation. But the reality is that so few people do this because, yes, it can be a bit unsettling, to say the least, to look at some of these aspects of yourself that you've become so conditioned to turn away from. It's easier, right? To look away, to distract yourself or run from something that doesn't make you feel good. But it's this very decision to acknowledge these shadow aspects of yourself that separates those who thrive in life. They get the absolute most out of life. And those who remain stuck repeating the very same relationship patterns, hitting financial ceilings, or fluctuating from having money to losing it, breaking destructive habits and addictions, and then relapsing over and over. If you're joining us for the first time, my name is Zach Michael, and welcome to Rays of Consciousness. We coach entrepreneurs and change makers how to free themselves from self-sabotage, become unstoppable, and live their full potential while making a massive impact in the world. Now, I've been in the field of human potential professionally since 2010. My approach to helping people achieve personal transformation has evolved naturally. There are so many different methods and pathways that we have available. But the pattern amongst most of them is that you'll need to utilize the negative symptom, problem, or pain that you experience, at least to some degree, if you want lasting freedom from it. But why is that? If it's freedom from pain that we want, freedom from suffering, why must we connect with it in the first place? Well, let's look at why that is. An emotional state is just that. It's a state of mind and body. This is an internal experience made up of images, thoughts, emotions, feelings that is automatically created in your body-mind when we perceive anything in our external environment that matches our past experience with that person, place, or thing. So if you had a series of negative experiences involving the same person, for example, your unconscious mind will record the experiences along with the feelings and thoughts that you had throughout each moment of interaction with that person. Now, because the mind, the unconscious mind, learns through repetition, this repeated negative exposure to the same person becomes a learned experience. Now, even the very thought of this person can trigger the same thoughts and feelings that you experienced while you were with them, even though you're only picturing them in your mind. In that moment, you've unintentionally created an inner state of lower emotional vibration. So why does our body-mind respond to something that isn't even there in the first place? Well, this is because the unconscious mind doesn't know the difference. It doesn't even know the difference between what you experience in real life and what you imagine. This is hypnosis. Triggered states of lower emotion are in fact hypnotic states. Your body-mind generates the emotion and even the physical feeling of that emotion because it believes that what you're thinking about is what you're actually experiencing. Now, this phenomenon is a double-edged sword. if you do nothing with this state of hypnotic trance, then all you'll experience is pain and suffering. And what's worse is that if you never utilize these triggers, then every time you experience one, it reinforces the unconscious pattern, leveraging the power of repetition, making it stronger and stronger, shackling you into an endless cycle of emotional reactivity. However, if you've made a firm decision that enough is enough and you want freedom from these emotional triggers, the emotional state itself actually becomes the very best moment to transform. Darkness is the doorway, and when we come face to face with an element of our shadow, we can use the law of polarity to transmute that bit of darkness into light. Piece by piece, trigger by trigger, you're presented with opportunities to experience yourself and the world around you in a brand new way, different than you have in the past. So ask yourself, is how I've experienced life up until this point how I actually want to experience my life going forward? Because if you want something different from life, then you've got to become something different in life. The simple act of choosing to see the meaning and value of a triggered moment as an opportunity to evolve instead of something that happened to you, which you're now a victim of, is the moment that you begin to literally embody the higher expression of yourself. It literally begins to take shape, and directly because of your choice to shift your perspective. Let me say that again. Choosing to see the meaning of a triggered emotion as an opportunity to evolve is the moment that you begin to embody the higher version of you. Once you adopt this practice of consistently choosing to see triggers as challenges, you're now capable of activating the process of inner alchemy. To alchemize means to transform the nature and properties of something. And to alchemize emotionally, you're going to utilize the fourth law of Hermetic wisdom, the law of polarity. In the Kybalion, a book of Hermetic wisdom, the principle of polarity states that everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. Following this teaching of polarity, we can see that if something has become a problem on one end of a spectrum, in this case emotion, then its solution is found within the opposite end of that same spectrum. So when you're experiencing the grips of emotional negativity, you can activate the polarity principle by guiding yourself down the opposite end of the emotional spectrum and cancel out the negative trance state. We can do this using 3 simple steps. Step 1, conscious awareness. First, you want to pull yourself out of the emotional trance if you want to be able to transmute it. And this only involves you noticing that you're in a trance in the first place. So how do you know if you're in a hypnotic trance? Well, it's simple. Negative emotion equals unconsciousness. You know how and when you feel any kind of emotion. The difference here is that you'll now recognize that negative emotion is actually a stored hypnotic trance state which has just become activated by some familiar trigger. Realizing that you're in an unconscious state of trance is a critical piece here, because without this awareness, you remain stuck in hypnosis and at the mercy of the emotion. If you can just notice when you've been pulled into a trance, then you've already begun to pull yourself out of it, because to observe something requires that you are somewhat removed from it. Now that you've successfully observed your unconsciousness, you can activate step 2, allowance. Moving yourself along the opposite direction of the spectrum will require a deceleration of the momentum created by the previous negative emotion. This means that you want to slow the emotional energy down to a place of neutrality, where you'll experience a loosening of the grip it once had on you. The sensations of the negative hypnotic trance, they begin to shift. Your muscles go from constricted and tight to relaxed. Your breath goes from shallow and fast to deep and slow. And your heart rate moves steadily closer to baseline. Moment by moment, you're enabling your own freedom by allowing the state to be there and not resisting it. Resisting the negativity is reactivity, and to react is to remain unconscious. The resistance is what happens when you fail at noticing you're in an emotional hypnosis and then get angry or punish yourself in the emotion of shame, for example. What you resist persists, and this reactivity only serves to reinforce the emotional hypnosis. By allowing, you've chosen to accept the inner experience and not make it wrong and something to justify your own self-punishment. This is non-attachment through acceptance. You can allow the emotion and you can accept yourself. Now that the emotional energy has reached a level of neutrality, you can effortlessly move into step 3, forgiveness. This being the opposite polarity of the negative emotion. Forgiveness alchemizes the lower frequency into its higher polarity as a natural consequence of this choice to forgive. Forgiveness is much more than merely overlooking what happened and choosing to carry on, which is how most people commonly think of it. When something is overlooked, the wrongdoing is still acknowledged to have happened, but the person chooses to repress the way they feel about it in order to cope with the negative emotion. The emotion becomes buried into the unconscious, which can also mean trapped inside the physical body, where it continuously distorts the vibration wherever the emotion is stored. When you truly forgive yourself or another, what you're actually doing is acknowledging whatever took place didn't happen in the way that you initially perceived. You're simply forgiving yourself for perceiving illusion. Whatever happened in the past remains. However, the suffering has been released as your perception of what took place has completely changed. You may now see the silver lining of the situation and look upon it with gratitude for the fact that it actually happened in the first place, providing you with an opportunity to practice shifting your consciousness. When you can shift your consciousness through forgiveness in this way, you're learning the deeper life lessons that you came here to learn, specifically through these very challenges, undoing karmic patterns and evolving as a soul.